The Barrow County Courthouse in Georgia was the site of a solemn legal proceeding on a recent morning, as accused school shooter Colt Gray faced a judge for the first time since a tragic massacre that shocked the community. The 54-year-old defendant appeared before Magistrate Judge Curry Mingledorf for an initial hearing to address the charges against him and be informed of his rights. As the proceedings began, Judge Mingledorf first confirmed Gray's identity and ability to understand English. The judge then inquired if Gray was aware of his right to legal representation, which Gray affirmed. Present in the courtroom was defense attorney Zane Heron, representing Gray for this initial appearance. Judge Mingledorf carefully explained to Gray his constitutional rights, emphasizing the right to remain silent and cautioning that any statements could potentially be used against him in future proceedings. The judge then informed Gray of the serious charges he was facing: 4 counts of felony murder. The gravity of these charges was underscored as the judge outlined the potential maximum penalty, which included death, life imprisonment without parole, or life imprisonment with the possibility of parole. The proceedings took an unexpected turn when defense attorney Heron informed the court that alternate counsel would need to be appointed due to a development that had occurred the previous afternoon. Heron assured the court that arrangements were already in motion to secure new representation for Gray by the end of the day. This sudden change in legal representation added an element of complexity to an already tense situation. As the initial hearing concluded, a second appearance hearing commenced immediately after. During this portion, Judge Mingledorf delved deeper into Gray's background, learning that the defendant was 54 years old, completed his GED after leaving high school in the 11th grade, and had no difficulty understanding English. Charges against Gray were then enumerated in greater detail. In addition to the previously mentioned 4 counts of felony murder, Gray was now facing 2 counts of felony murder in the second degree, 4 counts of felony involuntary manslaughter, and 8 counts of felony cruelty to children in the second degree. The judge meticulously explained the maximum penalties for each charge: up to 30 years imprisonment for each count of second-degree felony murder, 10 years for each count of involuntary manslaughter, and 10 years for each count of cruelty to children. In total, the charges carried a potential maximum sentence of 180 years imprisonment. Throughout the proceedings, Judge Mingledorf repeatedly emphasized Gray's rights, including the right to an indictment by a grand jury, the right to a preliminary hearing, the right to a speedy and public trial, the right to confront and cross-examine witnesses, and the right to call witnesses and testify in his own defense if he so chose. The judge also stressed the presumption of innocence, and that Gray's refusal to testify could not be used against him in determining guilt or innocence. A preliminary hearing was scheduled for December 4, 2024 at 8:30 a.m., tentatively set to take place in the Magistrate Court of Barrow County. The judge noted that this date was subject to change and provided Gray with documentation outlining the hearing details and copies of the warrants against him. Present in the courtroom were District Attorney Brad Smith and his chief assistant, Patricia Brooks, representing the state's interests in this high-profile case. The gravity of the situation was palpable, with the courtroom gallery filled with interested parties maintaining a respectful decorum throughout the proceedings. As the hearing drew to a close, it was revealed that James Rogers would likely be appointed as Gray's new defense attorney, with an official announcement expected later that day. The judge assured Gray that his new counsel would meet with him soon to discuss the case further. The events leading up to this courtroom appearance had sent shockwaves through the community. While specific details of the school shooting were not discussed during this initial hearing, the severity of the charges and the potential penalties highlighted the devastating nature of the alleged crime. The mention of multiple counts of felony murder, involuntary manslaughter, and cruelty to children painted a grim picture of a tragedy that had unfolded within a school setting, leaving families and an entire community grappling with loss and searching for answers. The case against Colt Gray represents not just a legal proceeding, but a pivotal moment for a community in mourning. The charges suggest a scene of chaos and violence that erupted in a place meant to be safe for children, leaving multiple victims in its wake. The inclusion of cruelty to children charges indicates that the alleged actions had a profound and traumatic impact on young lives, extending beyond just those who may have been physically harmed. As news of the charges and court appearance spread, it undoubtedly reopened wounds for those directly affected by the shooting and reignited discussions about school safety, gun control, and mental health resources. Cases involving violence in schools touch upon some of society's most sensitive issues and deepest fears, often leading to intense public scrutiny and debate. The legal process ahead for Colt Gray will be long and complex. With the appointment of new counsel, his defense team will need time to review the evidence, develop a strategy, and potentially negotiate with prosecutors. Given the severity of the charges, particularly the multiple counts of felony murder, the possibility of a plea bargain versus going to trial will be a critical decision for the defense to consider. For the prosecution, led by District Attorney Brad Smith and his team, the task ahead is to build a case that can withstand the scrutiny of the court, while also serving the interests of justice for the victims and their families. The presence of both the district attorney and his chief assistant at this initial hearing underscores the high-profile nature of the case and the resources the state is likely to devote to its prosecution. The impact of this case extends far beyond the courtroom. Schools in the area and across the nation will likely review and potentially revise their security protocols in light of this incident. Mental health professionals may be called upon to provide support not only to those directly affected by the shooting, but also to students, educators, and parents grappling with anxiety and fear in its aftermath. Community leaders and elected officials may face pressure to respond with policy changes or initiatives aimed at preventing similar tragedies in the future. The debate over gun control laws, always contentious, may reignite with renewed vigor, with advocates on both sides pointing to this case to support their positions. As the legal proceedings against Colt Gray continue, they will serve as a focal point for a community's grief, anger, hope, justice. Each court appearance, each new development in the case, has the potential to reopen wounds and reignite public discourse on the issues surrounding the tragedy. The scheduled preliminary hearing on December 4th, 2024, will be a critical next step in the legal process. At this hearing, prosecution will need to present enough evidence to establish probable cause that the crimes occurred and that Gray committed them. This hearing will provide the first substantial glimpse into the state's case against Gray, and may offer more details about the events transpired during the alleged school shooting. For the families of the victims and the survivors, the road ahead is long and painful. The legal proceedings, while necessary for justice, also force them to relive the trauma of that day repeatedly. Support services and victim advocacy groups will play a crucial role in helping these individuals navigate both the emotional toll and the complexities of the legal system. The media coverage of the case will likely be intense, given the nature of the alleged crimes and their setting in a school. Balancing the public's right to information with the need to protect the integrity of the legal process and the privacy of those involved will be an ongoing challenge for all parties. As the case progresses, it may also spark broader discussions about societal issues that could contribute to such acts of violence. Mental health resources, social isolation, bullying, and the influence of violent media are just a few of the topics that may come under scrutiny as the community searches for understanding and ways to prevent future tragedy. The appointment of James Rogers as Gray's new defense attorney adds another layer to the unfolding legal drama. Rogers will face the challenging task of ensuring his client receives a fair trial in the face of intense public scrutiny and emotion. His strategies and arguments will be closely watched, as they may provide insights into the defense's perspective on the events that transpired. For Judge Mingledorff and the court system, maintaining the balance between the rights of the accused and the pursuit of justice for the victims will be paramount. Every decision, from pretrial motions to potential jury selection, will be made under the microscope of public attention and with the weight of its impact on all parties involved. As the case against Colt Gray moves forward, it serves as a somber reminder of the devastating impact of violence in our schools and communities. It challenges society to grapple with difficult questions about safety, mental health, and the measures needed to protect our most vulnerable citizens. The legal proceedings are just one part of a larger process of healing and reflection for a community forever changed by tragedy. The road to justice in this case will be long and fraught with emotion. Each step of the legal process will be closely watched by a community seeking answers and closure. As the courts work to ensure a fair trial and the upholding of constitutional rights, the broader societal implications of this tragedy will continue to unfold, potentially shaping policies and attitudes for years to come. In the end, the case of Colt Gray is not just about one man facing charges for alleged horrific acts. It is a mirror held up to society, reflecting our fears, our vulnerabilities, and our collective responsibility to create safer communities. As the legal process unfolds, it will undoubtedly leave an indelible mark on all those involved, and serve as a painful but necessary step in the long journey towards healing and prevention of future tragedy.